I like asking questions. So, no, I just intrigued about what kind of data. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, from the point of view of analytics, are you looking into just looking at one particular field as related to space, or you're talking in general data for the sake of data? I just want to understand.
Our original purpose for the analytics company was to provide due diligence for the equity fund. So it's expanded beyond that now. The volume, we're not sure just how big the volume is yet going to be at this point, but I suspect it'll be larger than DBpedia. Basically, everything relates to everything else. So if you want to know about, I don't know, the zero gravity solutions, I'll just pick on them, for example. They're doing biotech. So we need to have links to the technology. We need to have links to the science. We want, from the investor point of view, we need to know, how did they do their IPO? They actually did a reverse buyout. So we'd like to know who the investors are. We don't yet, but we will have people in there as well. Does that answer the question?
It does. It also gets me thinking. One of the things we need is a concept that we were playing with a couple years ago about technology networking, and basically the whole premise was that we have this global network of researchers and facilities and centers of excellence all over the world, where for the most part there's a great researcher in country X that has a great idea, but he doesn't have the lab equipment or resources to get the job done. So the way that we were thinking is, how do we get these researchers to be able to team up with, let's say, a researcher in country X, let's say in Arabia, and then he wanted to connect with a researcher in Mexico and have access to the facilities and getting down to the point where when that equipment will be available. And so I would wonder if that's something that could be, be able to be leveraged and developed so that you have this big network of data that allows people just to know when a facility will be available and what kind of resources will be available to that individual.
That wasn't one we thought of yet, but we've already, it is a good one. I've actually been involved in problems like that before. We've already taken the approach that we're going to provide a platform for people, both either you can put data into our system directly or to link to it. And the query system is a system called Sparkle. It's an acronym. And it allows you to run SQL database-like queries. It looks very similar, but it allows you to query across multiple databases at once. So if I think it would be interesting to provide that kind of capability, if we can figure out a way to do it. So now that may be one of those ones we'll need to have this academic subscriptions. Especially large-scale queries that take a long time. We're going to be running on Amazon. In fact, we already are. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to provide as much as possible for free to everybody, and we're going to work with partners. So I think it's a great idea. I think we could do that if we can figure out how. Yeah.
I got a question. For horizontal takeoff and landing spacecraft or launch providers, what do they look when they want to move to a state? What kind of incentives or infrastructure are they looking for to establish to a state?
So I'm going to repeat the question and tell me if it's right. So you're wondering, when a company is looking for new facilities or is potentially interested in relocating, what are they looking for?
Correct.
Okay. Having participated in a few of these exercises when I was at X-Corp, I can tell you what we look for, and I don't think it's significantly different than many other companies. Let's take the situation of a horizontal launch company. That'd be an X-Corp or a Virgin, for example. Obviously long runways, low population density over the operational area. These are sort of the technical requirements that you need right up front. Once you get through the technical and operational requirements like airspace utilization, neighbors that actually want you and don't want to kill you or don't want you around because you make too much noise. Those sorts of things. Then you get on to more, I'll say, economic issues. And depending on the stage of the company and their needs, you can attract, certainly earlier stage companies are much more interested in cash than back in, tax breaks, because most of the earlier stage companies are running thin to the margins, and they might not have a tax burden for a number of years. What is interesting, I think, about a more mature company or a company that's a little bit forward thinking is some of the innovative things that are available to them here in Puerto Rico. Some of the advantages that you have, perhaps that you don't sell hard enough, is if there's a significant amount of potential international revenue that's coming into that company, obviously there's some more favored corporate tax incentives here in Puerto Rico than if you're based on the mainland. I think we all know what those are. So it's a matter of figuring out what your advantages are and then selling them to sort of the right target market. But if you're trying to find a bunch of startups, perhaps you're going to sell the beach and free space, right? If you're selling to a SpaceX, then who has a significant amount of international revenue, it's, hey, your corporate tax rate's going to go from 40% when you're profitable down to whatever you're going to give them for 10 or 15 years, right? 2%, 3%. So if you have a company that's largely privately held and is large cash flow, then you're going to sell the preferred dividend tax rate to the owners. But you have to do that homework. You got to figure out, who your customer is and what's their pain and how you're going to solve that pain and how you're going to compete with everyone else trying to solve the same pain. So, but you got to pass the technical thresholds first, which, by the way, I think you do at Roosevelt Roads. I don't know if you want a vertical launch pad out there. It sounds like you want a small one. Do you have size for a medium-sized launcher or a heavy? I know it's horizontal, but are you going to have a vertical as well? That's something you got to think of. What's great about Roosevelt Roads is it's on the east side of the island, right?
It also has a good airspace situation.
Oh yeah, it's got a good airspace. The islands, I know, if you're going to go a little bit south, you'll miss the islands to the east. So.
I just wanted to go back. You just reminded me, similar to what the gentleman here was asking about the science. Part of the purpose of this whole system that, it's in our plan is to provide linkages, like if a company is looking for a widget of some kind, they want to be able to, we want our site to be able, for them to be able to research on our system, who makes that kind of system. And if you're a startup building something, or even not a startup, if you're Lockheed and you're looking at markets 10 years from now, you should be. We want you to be able to use our system to find markets and to find products, and that ties very similar to the science. And one of the data sets that I've already started loading is the entire NASA facilities data set. It has everything down to the latitude and longitude of each office in the NASA facilities, and we'll be doing that for everything else too.
Are there other questions?
I got one more. I'm wondering, so the kind of financing that this new commercial space startups, have, what is the percentage of, if it comes from, billionaires or from seed investors or venture capitalists? So, like, what is the percentage? So, is it just like Elon Musk says, hey, I want to build this, a space company, so I'll put in my money, or this guy comes around and says, hey, I'm pitches to someone?
So obviously it depends. If you're going to try to compete with SpaceX, you're going to do a medium-sized launcher, and you're going to start with a thing like a Falcon 1, you're going to need, $100 million in cash in some form or another. If you're doing what Natalia Brickner's doing, which is you're going to do postage size stamp electric thrusters with very innovative fuels, you need $250,000 SBIR grant. Okay. So again, it depends. If you're going to do payload processing, That might be a bootstrap operation. You can do it with some seed funding and capital. You just got to get your first customer and run lean. So it depends, literally. You have to go back to that inverted pyramid chart where you got infrastructure, platforms, and applications. What part of the what part of the industry do you want to pursue? Well, there's a significant. Well, then you sort of evaluate. Well, what am I good at? What are my skill sets? And how much capital can I raise? If you can raise zero, start focusing on applications, right? If you can raise $250,000, maybe you got the beginning of a more robust application, or maybe the beginning of a platform. You got to do that sort of rigorous, put your matrix together and move forward. Again, solving a problem that is painful to somebody is a great start. You know, I go back to the four or five rules of entrepreneurship. You know, who's the customer, right? What's their pain? How are you going to ease that pain? How are you going to compete with everyone else trying to ease that pain? And how's the buying decision made? If you can answer those 5 questions, then you've got a business. So.
I'm not sure how that reminded me, but I just saw an article of a guy has come up with a thing he calls thumb sats, which are literally the size of a thumb drive. Mm-hmm. And he expects, you could build one for under $100 probably, maybe $200-300, and launch prices way less than 10 grand. Mm-hmm. This is something a high school could do easily.
By the way, it's interesting you mentioned that, because about 8 years ago I was up at Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts, and they're actually doing space weather systems. So you really need to know when a big, huge set of ions is blasting out of the sun and headed toward your satellite, because you might want to shut the satellite down for a little while everything passes through, and then you can reboot it back up, and you don't have shorts and that sort of thing, and you kill your satellite. Well, space weather and space environmental situational awareness, they're looking at sort of thumb drive size satellites. The flip side of that is that a thumb size drive satellite doesn't really steer itself that well, and you basically create space debris. So, there's sort of this
low orbit.
Yeah, but it's space debris nonetheless, and it's small, and you can't see it, and it goes real fast. And so there's a lot of situations. The slide you had up about garbage trucks, I often mention that as one of the great businesses of the future in space. It's one of the great businesses today here on Earth. Garbage collection, waste management is a huge publicly traded company for a good reason. And space debris is a big problem, and someone's going to make a lot of money doing it. So.
There's another business that is going to be a valid one for some time to come. Intelsat runs 200 and some odd communication satellites in geostationary orbit. They have an outstanding $500 million offer to produce a way to refuel their satellites. Mm-hmm. The lifespan of a communication satellite is defined by the amount of fuel it has, which is about 15 years. They make over $100 million a quarter on those satellites. If they can extend the life another 10 years, that's $1 billion? No, it's $40 billion.
It's a lot.
$4 billion. So they're willing to pay half the cost if someone else will come up with the other half. And NASA actually has a similar program. And they actually have figured out a way to cut into the fuel lines of an existing military satellite, in their case, and install valves so that it can be refueled. So if anybody wants to get into that, the money is out there ready to be spent if you can come up with a way to do it.
By the way, NASA just in terms of entrepreneurs in the room, NASA just recently announced that they are opening up all of their patents to give away for free licensing to anyone on a non-exclusive basis who wants to try to commercialize that technology. And so she might be sitting in the room, or she might be part of the group that's doing it. But yeah, and so you should talk to her. That's significantly different than trying to win an SBIR grant, which, by the way, is not that easy.
I've done it.
Yeah, we've won some
It's
SBIRs
not
too,
easy.
but it's not easy. And so, what I'd recommend you do, if you're interested in this sort of thing, is go on the NASA website and find all these patents. They've got thousands of them. And you find something you want to commercialize, go see the lady at the second table in front. Because they're free.
I have two other things. I think we're probably getting close to a close.
Yeah, actually, I think we're probably way over time.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Two things. One is,
He's got that big hook.
one of you has a 12-year-old right now who may well be the future Robert Bigelow. And the other sort of a challenge to you folks is, what do you guys think needs to be done in Puerto Rico to make all this happen?
Okay, well, thank you very much.